Good morning, good afternoon. This is Byron Brown, Sports Talk Law Talk with Jody Ayler here. How is everybody doing? How are you doing, Jody?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm hanging in there. Let's turn this corner on 2020 and get to 2021. What do you say?
I agree, man. I agree. Are you all ready for Thanksgiving?
No, I'm shocked that next week is Thanksgiving. Like it's
crazy.
Super weird that a week from today, when we're recording this, next week is Thanksgiving. That is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, no, we haven't done anything yet to prepare for Thanksgiving. I don't have any Christmas lights up. My wife just put up the Christmas tree yesterday, so we got some work to do. But we're not having anybody over for Thanksgiving. Like, we were planning on having everybody down from Canada, and obviously Canada is way more strict about COVID than down here. You know, and then with those gatherings, it's a weird thing. You know, I don't know how you're dealing with it, but I got to rethink a bunch of things. You know, we have the whole Christmas party. So 30 people get to come to my house December 5th for a Christmas party for the office, which is awesome. And it's something I want to do, obviously, to thank the staff and everybody that works hard. But at the same time, I'm questioning whether it's the right thing to do, because numbers are increasing, and like, you can test before people come. That doesn't mean that when they're in there, they're not going to have it. It's a really weird time, you know? So I don't know. I might be canceling that party. I have no idea yet, but you know, I'm taking it almost like day by day, and we'll see how it goes. How are you guys dealing with COVID and the holidays?
I mean, we're pretty much locked down. I mean, we see my folks because we're all sort of staying pretty much close to home, and then we have another family in our neighborhood that's very safe. So they have 2 kids that our kids can play with, so they can get some socializing, which has been a lifesaver for the mental health of my wife and myself. And so like, you pick and choose and just try to make sure you're doing the right thing. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that party. Have you seen, I'm curious your thoughts on this, these stories about how like the very wealthy in America have access to rapid PCR tests. They call it the velvet rope for the rich. Where, you know, did you see in California, the governor is getting roasted in California because he had some private dinner at this fancy restaurant where nobody was wearing masks, and it includes some of California's top health doctors. Meanwhile, you know, you can't go, right now in California, they have a mask mandate for anywhere outside your home, and the governor was in the restaurant, and they're saying like super rich people have access to these rapid PCR tests so that they can get together, have a test in 15 minutes, show that they're negative. I think that's really fucked up. That really bothers me.
Yeah, I think that's bullshit, man. There shouldn't be 2 standards, especially when you're the governor and the person implementing these restrictions. You have to live by them.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know how you can expect everybody else to comply, and then you have special rules. I mean, I feel like he loses all credibility with that. It's funny because it's something I've always wondered if, you know, about you threw a tail on Doug Ducey. What's he doing, you know, out there? You know that they're not as strict as they're saying everybody should be, which is annoying. And I have heard of those tests. I've heard of these tests where, you know, you can get them back in 15 to 20 minutes. But see, in my mind, if California, well, they are. If California's mandated masks, so it's masks. Like, it shouldn't, like, there was no exceptions with the rules the governor outlaid, right? It wasn't like, hey, if you get everybody and everybody tests negative, you can get together and have food. No, it's a double standard. And that's the sort of shit, man, that's going to keep putting this country in a bad way, because it's why the citizens don't want to follow the directions given by elected officials, because if elected officials aren't going to follow them, they're no better than anybody else. And people putting themselves above other people, man, that's how we got into this situation with Black Lives Matters and everything, is people not considering other people and being selfish. That sort of behavior has to stop. And that's the stuff that really fucking irritates me, because, you know, at our office, we've had a couple people test positive. And what we've had to do is I make everybody wear masks. Everybody has to get tested. As soon as everybody shows a negative test, masks come off. You know, and I'm encouraging people to be safe. You know, I can't dictate what staff do, but you know, we're staying away from the raves, which probably no one was going to anyways, right? But you know, staying away from those sort of events, and you ask everybody to kind of do it together, kind of much like you described, right? Is you got a family, maybe you got a couple friends that you know are on your level of concernness, so to speak, as it relates to it, and those are the people that you're gonna get. But man, it's tough, you know, with Christmas coming around the corner and everything. It's I know I've talked to some people who quarantined, and the loneliness is, I think, something that people really don't take into account. So when you said you had another family, I was happy, because I was like, man, like your kids and shit, people need to interact with people. It doesn't matter if it's just a small interaction, but I think we have to do that. And you would hope after 9 months or 8-9 months of this bullshit that people would be like, okay, listen, no matter what I think about masks, no matter what I think about COVID, I want to get the country and my life back on track. How do we do that? Oh, well, I got to compromise some of my views and values. Is that big of a fucking deal to make sure that we all have jobs and we can pay our bills and stay healthy? In my mind, it isn't. It isn't. And listen, if you're going to have that mentality, we're never going to get back to normal. So no matter what your view is on it, I'm assuming everybody wants to be back at some semblance of normalcy.
Right.
Well, we're at 8-9 months, right? The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So you got to change your fucking game plan up. And if you're not going to, I don't know what to tell you to do. But that sort of stuff, man, hearing that annoys me, because, and maybe I was been guilty of the past of maybe not being as concerned or strict about it, but you know, it's persisted. So like my point of view has to be incorrect, right? And I think, like everybody, hey, admit you're wrong, change your fucking attitude and move forward. If you're not going to do that, you're not an adult, you're not a rational human being, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and you're not a neighbor, you're not a community member, you're not a friend. Now, vaccine news, we saw 2 vaccines that are showing 95% efficacy. If, hypothetical here, if, you know, the vaccine train rolled into Phoenix and to Gilbert and was like, hey, anybody who wants a vaccine right now gets one, would you take it?
Oh, fuck yeah, I would take it. I got no issue with vaccines, man. Like, to each their own again, but I got a flu shot, kind of begrudgingly, if I'm honest. My wife and kids made me do it, and so if I'm gonna have my kids do it, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I'm gonna go and do it. But yeah, if they come out with a vaccine for COVID, I mean, like, I'm gonna be like, yeah, right here, let's go. I got no issue with that stuff. I mean, I know people that have issue with vaccines. I don't think that the state or government should ever make people do things. I'm anti-government that way. I think though that people should do what's reasonable under the circumstances, and I think you have to think about your fellow man. And so even if you're against vaccines, I'm assuming you're pro pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're pro I want to go to work. I'm assuming you're pro I want my children to have a normal life. Like, if you're all of those things, I don't know how you sit there and say we're not going to do the vaccine and we're not going to do this. Okay, don't do it. But we're still going to be living in this you know, land of uncertainty, I guess I'd say, which I don't know about you, but I'm tired of living in that land. Like, you know, I'm consciously anxious about my business, my jobs, other people's security. And it's a lot. And especially at this time of the season, we're all stressed the fuck out, and it's going to be really hard to keep people away from their families. Like, you know, this is the one time of year that, you know, everybody universally gets together, eats turkey, has some eggnog, has some fun, you know, chews the fat up, and listen, you get together with your family. So I don't know, it'll be tough. You know, Christmas is right around the corner. We'll see what people do, but DeAndre Hopkins sure gave us an early Christmas present with that catch. I mean, literally the catch heard around the world. You know, there's the miraculous, what is it with Gale Sayers? Gale Sayers?
The Immaculate Reception. There's something called the Immaculate Reception that I think was Lynn Swann and the Steelers, I want to say, from the 70s. Immaculate Reception.
Right. I met Lynn Swann's, it was back in my drinking days. I met Lynn Swann's son at like a keg party. Really nice dude. But all he could talk about was his father and that particular catch, which is awesome. But going back to DeAndre Hopkins' catch, and we're showing it right now, man, those are the things that have never gone right for the Cardinals in the past, right? And quite honestly, the Hail Mary, now we'll call it the Hail Murray, usually doesn't work. But man, Kyler Murray's a special cat. DeAndre Hopkins is a special cat. And that's a recipe for an amazing catch, which is what we saw.
So what's really interesting is after the game, they talked to Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, DeAndre Hopkins. None of those dudes have ever had a play in a game end like that on that play. So what's really cool as a sports fan is if you were watching it, that'll probably be the only time in your life you ever see a game end like that. It might have been a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. And we got to see it happen here in our backyard to the Cardinals winning a game. Suddenly, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, this is crazy, Byron. I know, like, let's say in hockey, right? Like, there's bandwagon teams in hockey, right? Like, for a long time, the Detroit Red Wings were a bandwagon team. Everybody just hopped on board because it was, Nick Lidstrom and Dominic Hasek and Stevie Y, and everybody wanted to play there, and then fans follow, and fans are bandwagon fans. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray, everyone loves watching play. DeAndre Hopkins is just a super cool cat. I mean, he just is. There's some dudes that don't have to try, and they're just cool, and that's Hopkins, right? People are hopping on the Cardinals bandwagon. I mean, this is a team that everyone wants to watch play, and that transformative nature has never really happened. Like, Fitz is an all-time great, but has always played mostly shitty teams, right? A couple good years, but mostly shitty teams. The Cardinals, I think the exact stat, I might get this off by a season or two. They've been playing in Arizona since 1987. I think they have 6 total seasons where they've been above 500 since 1987. So this could transform the Cardinals franchise and the city of Phoenix sports landscape in ways we've literally never seen before, because Kyler, whether it's this year or the next 5 years, is going to be the best quarterback in football, and DeAndre Hopkins is already one of, if not the best wide receivers in football. Like, it's kind of an amazing time to have a front row seat at this transformation as it's happening.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I think it is a transformation. I think we're in the middle of it. If not, we're through 3/4 way through it, where, I think the first couple games we were like, okay, is this real? We were all like, okay, we've seen this before. We got a strong start. Let's see if we hold it together. Then we had a couple like close losses, but they were close, and the team still played really well. And then, these last couple games, I think they've proven that they're a force to be reckoned with, and they're not the Cardinals of old. They're the Cardinals of new. And this is the funny thing. I don't know if you're superstitious, but I'm always a little superstitious. So when I'm watching TV, like Team Canada, games that like I'm really, really into, if my team starts losing, I'm the guy that'll change the channel.
Yeah.
But I have an idea of it where I'm like, okay, I'm going to change the channel, and then I'll check back in like 10 minutes. And at least 50% of the time when I do that, I tune back in and my team's doing well. And so I credit myself, right? I'm like, okay, Byron, you stop watching, so they're doing well. So I wonder if that's part of it, right? Like, imagine we fill the stadium at whenever that is possible, and they start to suck again. Like, right. At that point, like, are we collectively enough in love with the Cardinals that we're like, listen, no one go to the fucking game? Right. Because I think we've all had those friends where that one friend misses the game and your team wins, and you're like, listen, Joe, you can't fucking come anymore because, we win when you're not around. I don't know, but yeah, it's fun, man. It's a fun time to be in the Valley. The only thing that could make it better, obviously, is if we're able to go to the game. The Suns just made a big move, trading for Chris Paul. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I mean, listen, I know a lot of people have gotten kind of worked up about that trade. He's a 35-year-old point guard that is owed $86 million the next 2 years. He was also an all-star and an all-NBA player last year, but I'm like I had the same reaction you did, Byron, but like, it's not my fucking money. I'm not paying him, so I don't care how much money he's making. I mean, that's the contract they traded for. It's Robert Sarver's money. If he's willing, in the middle of a pandemic where profits have plummeted for professional sports teams that can't rely on fans and season tickets and suites and concessions, and he wants to pay a dude $86 million for 2 years, hey, have at it, Haas. I mean, listen, Chris Paul, we talk about transformation, has the kind of leadership and influence to change the perception of the Suns franchise permanently. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to compete for an NBA championship in the next 2 years. Almost certainly they will not. But getting better is underrated. We always value the best, and we always should. I mean, being the best is awesome. Being the best is the best. But just getting better every day as a person, getting better every day as a lawyer, getting better every day as a sports radio host, there is real value in that, and I think that's where the Suns are, is they're a much better team now than they were before Chris Paul. Let me ask you this. So you mentioned Team Canada, and kind of what would right now would you consider and you're a big sports fan, you season tickets to multiple local sports teams. If I asked you to rank right now your 3 sports teams or individuals, whether it's a fighter in UFC or not, like, which teams and players do you care the most about? Like, who are you most emotionally invested in that you care the absolute most about when they're playing?
So number 1, Team Canada. And that might seem weird to some people, but in Canada on Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas Day, the World Junior Hockey Championships is always played. And that's, if you're in Canada, that's religion. That's what you watch. So obviously that's not year round, but that's always going to be my first passion is watching Team Canada play hockey, whether it's World Juniors or the Olympics. After that, it's the Cardinals. I've since moving here, I'm cheering for the home team, and I think they've done really well. I've gone to the games where, man, I went to one game a couple seasons ago, and I honestly, it was like 52-0 at like half, and it was the Broncos or something. Yeah, and I was like, I'm out of here. And so it's funny I say that because the Cardinals, and Steve Kime and Kingsbury have taken a lot of heat over the years, but to your point about getting better, that's what they did. They did every year. They kept acquiring talent. They drafted Rosen. That didn't pan out. Then they got criticized back-to-back quarterbacks with their picks, but arguably they made the right pick. And it's funny with Arizona fans in general. I feel like, you're kind of damned if you're doing, damned if you don't. And that's Sarver, right? Like so many people bitched and moaned about him, whether he wants to put money in the team or not. And, people are saying that Booker should leave Arizona, other team players, in the NBA. And so then they go out and they get someone to flank or help out, and great leadership. We got a young team. You need someone like that. That leadership is worth an undisclosed amount of money, in and of itself. So to your point, I think people should be happy. When we see things like the Rams, remember McVay comes in, the Rams do awesome, and now they're not doing awesome. Like they're flashing the pans because I think, like anything, they get a little success very quickly, but this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I like the way the Cardinals are doing it, and I like the way the Suns are doing it. And to finish your question, my third team that I would hope for is it's really like the Pats / Bucks at this point. Like I've always rooted for the Pats. Part of that has always been obviously a big Brady fan, and he's over in the Bucks now, and he's doing a lot better than Phillip Rivers is. But there's going back to him playing the Ravens lately, there's another great video. There's a lot out there of Rivers. I love the guy. It's funny. He's a good Mormon kid. I think he's got like 100 kids, but he really embarrassed himself in this play. He's on his butt already. It makes him look very unathletic, which I'm not saying he's unathletic. He's obviously way more athletic than either of us, and he's a professional athlete. But in that one moment, and he put a lot of smiles on a lot of faces, he doesn't look athletic at all.
He's not very athletic. I mean, listen, in the context, like Kyler Murray versus Phillip Rivers, it's night and day. But yeah, Rivers, who's got like the weirdest arm throwing motion to throw the football. He looks old. It's like shot putting it. He's not. He's an endangered species. Like he's a dinosaur in the NFL.
Well, and he's an easy guy not to like.
He's prickly.
And yeah. I think that's actually, I think that's a really good way to put it. He's prickly because it's not like he does anything where you're like, oh wow, like that guy's an asshole. It's more of like he just kind of rubs you the wrong way, like whether it's, I don't know, just his interviews. He's not a very likable guy. Like I hear him interviewed and I'm like, you just kind of seem like a dick, or like maybe he's arrogant. I don't know what it is, but
Aaron Rodgers is kind of the same way, right? Aaron Rodgers is kind of cut from that cloth, where you're just like, I don't want to hang out with that guy.
Yeah, like what Aaron Rodgers says lately, my bad seasons are every other quarterback's good season. Fuck, he made no friends with that comment. I think he's a good quarterback, but I do not believe he's good enough to say that.
Like, it's true. I mean, what he's saying is accurate. It's like, but let someone else say that. You saying it sounds like you really care about that when you're not supposed to really care about that. Like he's a tough guy Rodgers is a little different. Like Rodgers is estranged from his parents and his siblings. So there's always, you're always just kind of like, maybe it's all on them and not on him, but Rivers is the same way where you're like, I don't know that I'd want to hang out with you one-on-one for like an hour. I would probably want to punch you in the face.
Well, but from him who's unlikable to someone who is, I think, at the top of every media outlet's wish list right now is DK Metcalf. I hate to throw Buda Baker under the bus. It's not like I am, but Metcalf, I'm not saying he wasn't known before, but really what's put him on the map in the focus of all media right now is him chasing down Buda Baker. I could say Buda Baker all day. That's like the funnest name to say. But he chased him down, and now you hear him getting a ton of attention. If you ever see him with his shirt off, that'll make you fucking keep your shirt on. I mean, the kid's a stud, right? Like, he's all around a stud. I think that's the best way to describe him.
Yeah, he is, and it's painful. Like, Cardinals fans feel great. We just talked about how cool everything is with Hopkins and Murray. 2019 draft, they needed a wide receiver, and they took Andy Isabella in the second round. 2 picks later, the Seahawks took DK Metcalf. So the Cardinals.
Hey, Isabella's not bad. I'm not saying Isabella's bad, but he's no fucking Metcalf.
I'll say it. He kind of sucks. I mean, in his second year, he's like this 5'9" kid that looks like he's 15 years old that has made every mental mistake on the field you can make. Like, he'll be fine. Like, he'll play in the NFL for a while. But like you meant, DK Metcalf. Some people are calling him the best receiver in football right now. Now, Patrick Peterson did a good job covering him when the Cardinals played him earlier this year. Jalen Ramsey recently did a good job. He's
best in the league. You're talking 2 of the best in the league.
Exactly. Everyone else, he's turning into mincemeat. So I think there's still another level for him to get to. But yeah, I mean, he is not only awesome, he's fun to watch. He's just a fun, like, that's just one of the, I play fantasy football. I know you played fantasy football. There's just some guys that are more fun than others to have on your team. Like, DK Metcalf is fun to have on your team if you play fantasy football. He's just cool.
Yeah, no, he's a cool guy, man. Like, I'm not a Seahawks fan, but it's hard not to like Russell Wilson. I mean, the kid is as clean as they come, in my opinion. And then same with DK Metcalf. Like, I don't cheer for the Seahawks, but watching those 2 guys play, especially when they connect together, makes for exciting football for sure.
So, real quick, after the Cardinals won that game, Kyler Murray, the next day, told reporters that after the touchdown Hail Mary, he went home and played video games with his boys. And he said it was pretty much the most perfect day ever. And I'm like, how is that the perfect way to celebrate the greatest moment of your athletic life? Is like hopping on video games for 4 hours with his buddies. Like, what? It's insane to me that was the perfect day for Kyler Murray. But I'm not a gamer. I don't play video games. So
yeah, I'm not a gamer either. But I've heard a lot of at least older vets in the NHL complain about that during the playoffs, especially in the Maple Leafs. So Maple Leafs, a young team, and one of the vets who remained anonymous came out and was like, listen, like, these guys weren't interested in playing for the cup. They'd go back to the room and they'd jump on Xbox or whatever the fucking kids are playing these days, because I'm completely out of the loop as well, although I know that it's super popular with the younger generation.
Yeah, do your kids play? Do your daughters play?
No. Well, they play Roblox, I think is the one. Yeah. And then there's a new one. What is it, Brian? Your kids probably play it too, where they try to be like they try to find a killer. It's like Among Me or I mean, I've watched it. It's very kid friendly. It's not. It doesn't sound. I know it sounds violent, but it isn't. But isn't that just? I feel like it builds up the mystique of Kyler Murray too, though, because you look at him, and I'm saying this in a complimentary way, so listen to me. He's got some funky hair. He's a funky looking kid, but he's got a great attitude. He's got a smaller stature. So he kind of fits that role of like a little bit of a geek. But then at the same time, he's like a phenomenal football player, a phenomenal mind for football, obviously, with the plays that he does and the risks that he takes. It's not like he's afraid. It's not like he's, out there trying to avoid contact like maybe you'd think someone like that would. But man, the kid's just a stud, and I like his demeanor. You know what? I'm a different cat, so whenever I see different guys, and he is, I don't feel like he plays into the hype of being as big as he is. That moment, I think you probably see the video where, he's being asked, he's like, what, and I'm going to butcher the question, but it gets it across. It's like, how does it make you feel leading the number 1 offense in the NFL? And he goes, is that true? And he smiles. It's like he didn't even know. He doesn't give a shit about the accolades. He wants to win football games. And that's what makes him a special kid. That's why people want to watch him. That's why everyone's talking about him from coast to coast about possibly being the most exciting quarterback. I mean, he's up there now, I think, getting more attention than Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's that popular. When is the last time we had someone in Arizona who is that popular from coast to coast? Maybe like Kurt Warner, you know, but I mean, you know, like
Steve
you can
Nash.
say Fitz. Yeah, Nash, but I don't know. I feel like he's going to eclipse
I agree.
all of those. Maybe you could already make the argument he has in his short tenure.
It's a great point, and this is the conversation we had all week long. Is that like we just talked about Phillip Rivers and Aaron Rodgers, kind of prickly dudes. Like if they're your quarterback, your favorite team, you're like, well, I'm glad they're good because they're kind of an asshole. Like Kyler, people want to hang out with. Like he's just a really likable dude. I agree 100% with you. I think it adds to his mystique. I think the fact that he's kind of an introverted dude that doesn't really want to go out there and be, you know, making it rain at clubs and basking in all the limelight and the trappings of his fame makes him that much more likable. He just wants to fucking hang out with his friends, play video games, win football games. I'm sure he's enjoying, you know, what it means for the dating life as a single NFL quarterback. But
that, and you know, you bring that up. It's funny because you always see guy posting, you know, with whatever dime piece they got on their arm. I mean, I follow him on social media. He posts photos of like him playing games. Like he posts photos of his dog. I mean, like, you know, if he wasn't an NFL superstar, no one would want to follow him on social media because like it's very mundane sort of posts. But you know, hey, it's better than some NFL players out there. You go to the polar opposite end and you got DeAndre Baker. You know, you got a guy, and well, all of this is allegedly because nothing was proved in a court of law. But him and I forget who was his co-conspirator.
Quentin Dunbar.
They go to a party, allegedly. They hold him up at gun or knife point, rob him. The people go and report it to the police, and then they recant their story. And then the other interesting part of it is they had a lawyer. I keep referring to him as a 50-year-old lawyer, but I can't remember his name. He is a 50-year-old lawyer. And he essentially came out, and this isn't a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but said to Antonio Brown, sorry, not Antonio Brown. Yeah, no.
DeAndre Baker. DeAndre Baker.
Okay, my apologies. I'm confusing stories. But so that lawyer comes out and says, hey, pay us $266,000, and then my clients will do whatever you want them to do, essentially. And that, I think that, and I think the charges wouldn't have been dropped if the lawyer didn't do that. There was still the problem with the story of the witnesses recanting it, but I think they could have got past that because they had sworn statements from those witnesses. Obviously, it impacts their credibility, but I think the final twig to break the camel's back, so to speak, was this lawyer making a completely unethical statement, which it amounts to blackmail. It's, hey, pay us money or I'm going to do this to hurt you. That is obviously completely unethical. It's a crime. That lawyer is going to most likely lose his license to practice law. And DeAndre Baker, unfortunately, he gets a pass on something he may have allegedly done. And I think armed robbery, no matter who you speak to, it's serious fucking business. Now he's going to skate on these charges. There's no way that the prosecutor can pursue them with recanted statements and a dirty lawyer. There's no way to win that. So they have to drop them.
So as a lawyer, like, what's the difference between what his lawyer did and seeking a settlement and asking for money to make the case go away? Because that seems to happen all the time.
You're 100% correct, and it's a very thin line of a difference. So this is literally the difference. I do this every day. I'll call someone up on a case, whether it's a personal injury case or any other case, and you talk settlement. It's very normal in every litigation setting or legal matter to talk settlement. And what it typically is you go, hey, if you're the plaintiff, you go, pay me $250,000. And that's the end of the conversation right there. Lawyers know that in exchange for that $250,000, the person receiving the money is going to sign a release. That's the quid pro quo. That's the exchange. You pay me money, I sign a document saying I'm never going to fuck with you again. That's essentially it, right? And that's ethical. That happens every day across the country. With lawyers do. What lawyers don't do is say, pay me $250,000 or we're going to make your life hell. or hey, pay us $250,000 and then we'll be your huckleberry. We'll do whatever you want. That just reeks of unethicalism, and it's a quid pro quo that is fraudulent in my opinion and also unethical. So it's a really fine difference, because really the only thing that is changing is the blackmail one, the one that's improper or unethical. There's a threat attached to it. On the other end, there is no threat. I'm not saying pay me $250 or else. I'm just saying, hey, pay me $250. They can say no. If they say no, we continue with the litigation. If they say yes, we know what happens. Then you're going to sign a confidentiality agreement. You're going to sign a release. Within the confidentiality agreement, there's going to be paragraphs and statements that say you can't tell anybody. And that lawyer should have known that. That's like lawyer 101. If you're a 50-year-old lawyer who's practiced, we got to say for over 10 years, probably over 20 years, and you don't understand how to settle a case, that's inexcusable. You're the world's dumbest lawyer at that point.
So what do you think is do you think in this case, we don't know, we're just guessing, but was he seeking payment and hush money from those alleged victims, and he was just going to put it in his own pocket instead of passing it on to the players? Or like, why, if there's this clear path towards reaching a settlement, why wouldn't he have just got like, what's the motive, do you think? What's the motivation to blackmail?
I think listen, I've been in that exact situation where I have represented someone who's been sexually assaulted. So it's a serious matter. And you never say or make a threat about going to the newspapers or doing an interview or anything like that, because it's unethical. As a lawyer, like, I can lose my license to practice law, or at a very minimum have my license suspended. And I just think you got to notch it up to a lawyer not knowing what he's doing, because I honestly, to me, it's like the simplest legal issue ever. Yeah. And the way he phrased it is, I've never heard it phrased that way. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I've probably settled, thousands of cases. So I've had that discussion of, hey, pay me X, thousands of times. I've never heard another lawyer, mediator, judge, anybody in the legal field phrase it the way that guy phrased it. So that's why it's kind of like, us talking about, running a zone defense,
Yeah.
There's one way to run a zone defense, right? There might be little modifications to it, but the general idea is the same. And that's what confuses me about this, because this guy was way out on a ledge. It's really, and so one thing about the legal profession I've always been critical of is, you can pass law school, get your license, open up your own shop, and practice law. But in law school, all law school teaches you is how to spot issues and then research those issues. So you can imagine someone who goes out there with no mentoring or nothing. How are they going to become a better lawyer? They're not. I benefited from having a great mentor for the first 7-8 years of my career, and he gave me a ton of advice, and it was like a third degree. And that's the way when I mentor the lawyers at my office, I always say, look, at these first 3 to 4 years are not going to be comfortable, because I'm going to be teaching you a lot of stuff. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to be telling you about those mistakes, but that's how they improve. So if someone doesn't go through that process, you can see how they just don't have, any success. I'm assuming even within your career, you've probably had a mentor and people teach you things that have allowed you to avoid certain pitfalls, right? Whether it's a program director at the station or what have you, you have people around you that give you advice. There are lawyers out there that don't talk to anybody, that don't get advice from anybody, and they just sit in their office and they try to practice law. Well, you're going to miss a lot of things that way. Like, I don't know anything. Any lawyer who tells you they know everything, I'd steer clear of that fucking lawyer. Like, one of the biggest skill sets as a lawyer is to go, hey, look, there's going to be things that I don't know. And that's why we research things, and that's why we look up things. And if you're not doing that, you're a shitty lawyer. Like, you shouldn't have a law license. I could go about this topic forever, because I think the way state bars, licensed lawyers, the continuing it's all really bad news. And that's why we have a lot of bad lawyers out there that give a lot of other lawyers bad names.
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought. It was like, this is the kind of behavior that people assume that happens all the time, but to your point, it's more like in my profession, when I do sports radio, like there's a rule called plugola payola. Like you couldn't pay me money under the table to say, then go on the air. Like you couldn't just pay me $100 and say, hey, Jody, next time you're talking about lawyers, just say, hey, by the way, Byron Brown's the best lawyer I've ever seen. That's an illegal plugola payola. But if there's someone's a sponsor on the show and you go through it the right way and you go through the sales department and then it checks all these legal boxes, then you can go and say, hey, Byron Brown's the greatest lawyer ever. Now, I could also say that, people probably don't care. Like, I could say Byron's the best as long as you don't pay me. But that's what it sounds like this is. It's like there's just a line that everyone knows not to cross. And it's this dude just went rogue, and now it looks badly upon the entire profession in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, and your analogy is exactly right. Like, that's the finest distinction. You going on the radio with a perfectly signed, sealed, delivered sponsorship deal. Again, completely normal. Like me, just normally settling a case. However, as soon as you start doing stuff under the table, that's when you get into trouble. Everybody always wants that agreement to be at an arm's length, right? Like that we negotiated fairly. And it's the same theory with the example you just brought up as what we're talking about with this lawyer and the Baker incident. But on to bigger and better things. We got Dustin Johnson. So if people aren't familiar with Dustin Johnson, he won the Masters. Some people might be familiar with that. He is married to Wayne Gretzky's daughter. Needless to say, if you haven't looked up Dustin Johnson's wife or Wayne Gretzky's daughter, she's fairly attractive, and she posts some racy pictures at times. But her dad's Wayne Gretzky, and it's a funny thing. Like, I love Wayne Gretzky. I mean, he's always been my hero. I've had multiple posters of him on my wall as I grew up through the years. So it was funny. The first thing I thought of, and I'll do a little bit of backstory here. So Dustin Johnson allegedly loves cocaine, I've heard. If people want to go back in the day, I don't know if you'll remember, Grant Fuhr on the Edmonton Oilers was popped for cocaine. And he was the first real athlete, at least in my memory, outside of Olympic athletes testing positive for steroids. He was the first one who got popped for a recreational drug, at least to my memory in professional sports. The theory is, and I've heard this a lot in Canada from reputable sources, that the entire Oilers team loved the cocaine, and Gretzky was part of that. And now, I don't know what happened, but if you follow Grant Fuhr's career, I encourage people to do this. The only jobs Grant Fuhr had after his suspension was teams owned or run by Wayne Gretzky. And if you look at the other players on the team, Marty McSorley, he only got jobs after the incident with Donald Brashear when he was exited out of the NHL. He only coached and managed teams that were either owned or somehow involved with Wayne Gretzky. My point is, I think Wayne Gretzky is a guy's guy. When the cards are down, I think he's proved in the past to help out his teammates like he did in the Fuhr instance. Allegedly, maybe I'm completely off base, but that's what the rumor mill has. But what would you think, Jody, about Wayne Gretzky being the caddy for Dustin Johnson? Man, I just think it'd be awesome. Or even Paulina Gretzky, Dustin's wife, because golf is a little bit boring to watch at times. I feel like you spice it up with something like that. I'd be for it. I don't know. What do you think?
It'd be cool. So the other cool story you bring up, the caddy, is Dustin Johnson's actual caddy is his brother. And so for years and years, everyone was like, well, this guy is not really serious about winning because his brother's on the bag and he's not a real caddy. And so there was some vindication for Dustin Johnson that he won and his brother was on the bag. That's pretty damn cool to win at the Masters. But
right.
I mean, I think we talked about this last week with Bryson DeChambeau. Anything that brings some extra attention to golf, I think is good. And Wayne Gretzky being involved, Pauline, I don't know, did you see the shot of after Dustin Johnson won? They're walking towards the trophy presentation, and he's got his hand full palm on Paulina's right butt cheek, I believe is the technical phrase.
I don't think there's any other way to do it, Joey.
Right.
That's how I walk with my wife.
Yeah, and so that was he was just walking around like a magnet, his hand on her butt, and people noticed. People noticed Pauline Gretzky. You mentioned Dustin Johnson. is I think he sought treatment for cocaine abuse earlier in his career, if memory serves correctly. So hopefully everything's on the up and up. But it's a great story for golf.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw that whole thing about Pauline and his hand. I got no issue with it, man. Like they're
married.
Like they're married. Yeah, exactly. They're married, and if that's their relationship, more power to them. If that's they are happy, then why do people want to fuck with that? That's the one thing I don't ever understand about the criticism people. So
jealous.
Do you expect everybody to behave like you? No. I mean, I don't want to live in a world like that where everyone assimilates. I want everybody to be happy. And if Dustin and Pauline are happy with Dustin's hand on Pauline's ass, fuck, more power to you, man.
By the way, one little soapbox on this. That's the fucking problem with the world, Byron, is everybody wants to hold everyone else to a standard that they wouldn't live up to themselves. So everyone looks at everyone else's behavior and points out what they should be doing different, but they don't look at their own backyard and take care of business at home first. They just expect everyone else to follow this mythical standard that they've created that the world should all operate by. And like, yeah, they're fucking married. Like, what do you?
Right.
And it's not like if she were swatting his hand away because she's not into that publicly, and then he kept doing it. Okay, well then maybe we have a different. But like, it's two consenting married adults in public. My God, I was on a run the other day, and this couple in front of me, they were on a walk, and they just stopped. They're probably in their 50s or something, just making out in the middle of this jogging trail. And I was like, I'm just kind of rubbernecking on my way, but I'm like, oh, hey, man, more fucking power to them. They want to stop in the middle of the public and just fucking make out. I mean, not the place I would choose to do it in a running path, but hey, man, more power to you.
Yeah. And talk about holding people accountable. We got Antonio Brown in the news again. Fill us in on what you know about this. It's a security smashing incident is what it's being called.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a gated community, and there was some sort of dispute, and Antonio Brown allegedly smashed the security camera. The police said that there was enough evidence there to charge, but the HOA that was involved declined to press charges. I guess they were fearful of retribution or something.
See, I just don't think that's fair. Hey, listen, I'm gonna stick up for Antonio Brown for a second.
Dangerous territory.
It really is. But look, this is my point of view, and I'm interested in your opinion on it. So, by way of analogy, I was driving with my daughter one day. I have a 1990 Bronco that I've done a bunch of work on. It was wrapped, and it's wrapped with anti-lawyer, my image, and everything, right? So people would know it was me. And sometimes I drove fast, and they would call my office and complain. Anyways, one day I'm driving to meet my other daughter and wife for dinner, and I'm driving down behind Joyride in Gilbert, and I pass a parking spot, and I look in my mirror, and I see a car behind me, but they're about 50 yards behind me. So I reverse, and I'm going slow. I'm not going fast, and I hear a honk, and I look up again. And now the vehicle's 25 yards behind me. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still a lot of ways to go, right? So I continue to go again, and they honk again at me. And then at this point, I'm like, okay, what the fuck, right? So I put it in park, I get out, and this man and woman, it's almost like the two people in St. Louis were outside their house holding guns?
Yeah.
It was almost like that, a Karen and a Charlie or whatever. They get out, and they both have their phones, but they're not recording. And I get out and I go, sorry, did I hit anybody? And they said no. And I said, okay, well, what's the problem? Because you were honking at me. And they're like, well, and now they start recording, and they're holding it up like a meter from my face. And they're like, well, you're a lawyer. You know, like, we're looking for evidence. And I look at them and I go, evidence of what? You just told me nothing happened. So we're videoing nothing? And they're like, well, we're just doing it for our safety. And I'm like,
God.
You're in Gilbert, the safest community in probably fucking America. And you're right. I looked at him, and I think I told him like he's an idiot or something. And I got in my car, and I remember going into Liberty Market, and I said to my wife right then, I was like, and it was a bad day to begin with, a lot of stress in the day. And I said, I'm painting it. I'm like, I don't need people trying to like catch me doing something wrong and hurting my business. So that's kind of how I felt in that situation. I feel like Antonio Brown might have been in a similar circumstance. And what I mean by that is like, I'm not giving him a pass on the alleged sexual incidents that he's been involved in and some of that ugly stuff. I'm not saying that at all. But at some point, you have people out there that probably want to see his downfall. And I just don't understand why that HOA would say what she said. Like, I feel like it was an incendiary comment that she made for the sole purpose of getting attention and or throwing him under the bus. Like, Antonio Brown, like, what are they in fear of? Like, they have security guards. Like, what? He got aggressive. He raised his voice. Yes, he shouldn't have done that. He damaged something. Again, I get it. But, like, it's not like he's known for this violent person that goes around and beats the fuck out of people. It's more of, like, he makes a lot of bad choices. He makes a lot of bad statements. But at some point, we all have to give someone an ability to have a second chance. And again, I'm not saying I know everything about this camera incident, but what I am saying is it seems to me he's tried to make strides in his life to improve himself. And at some point, society needs to remove their foot off his fucking neck and try to let him show that he can be a functioning human. Now, Bruce Arians, he's come out and said, listen, if he's going to be a team player, great. If he's not, he's out the door. And I think from what my memory is of Bruce coaching here in Arizona, he was a no-nonsense guy. And I think he's also looked into this. And I think, I don't know, maybe they're still going to punish him. I don't know, like the jury's still out. Maybe they could come back. I haven't heard Bruce say anything one way or the other about it. Have you heard him say anything about it?
No, it was just he was asked basically, and that's what he responded, like, if he's not a model citizen, we'll be done with him. The NFL is looking into the investigation. I believe the Buccaneers, there was a statement saying that they were aware of this and they're not concerned about it, so it wasn't like a surprise. Two questions, though, here, because you just glossed over a couple things. One, you sound like a true fucking Buccaneers fan that's just willing to accept all the shit with Antonio Brown because he helped you win a couple of games. True fan. What did the couple think you were doing? Like, what possible wrongdoing did they think you were potentially committing? Or do you think it's now at a point where anytime a stranger has a potential interaction with another stranger, people are just recording because they think there's money to be made from it or something?
Well, I do believe that. And I do believe, you see a lot of videos nowadays where people are in an argument. Like, say I'm arguing with Forrest right now and we're getting in an argument. Now, a lot of people, and I'm not throwing Forrest under the bus, but in that situation, someone will pull out their camera and start videoing. Well, listen, if I'm arguing with someone and they pull out a camera and they start videoing me, I'm just, at least I have the wherewithal about myself. I'm just going to walk away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say shit to you. But what happens in a lot of situations is that's gas to the fire. So now someone who has the phone stuck in their face, they're amped up and they're getting angry. And the person who's doing the videotaping, in my opinion, that's what they're seeking. So they're going to keep poking and poking and poking. And then they're hoping you explode, right? And then they'll probably edit the video to only show the part that you explode. And that's the stuff that I think is problematic. I don't think we should be out there trying to incite each other into bad behavior. Even if you have a history of bad behavior, more reason, I guess, to leave the person alone. I just don't think, and I think it screams of where we're at as a society. Instead of just owning our own shit, we keep projecting stuff on other people and we keep commenting on other people's lives, whether it's a hand on an ass or whether it's, someone conducting themselves at a thing. Like, we all have bad days. We all have instances which we probably would have wanted ourselves to behave better. And Antonio Brown is no different. I'm not saying this isn't linked to his past behavior. I'm not saying it's a clean mark on him. I'm not. It is a problem, and he needs to steer clear of those situations, and he needs to have responsibility. But everybody else does too. Just because you're dealing with someone who has a past of violent or disruptive behavior, I think that means you should not try to entice that person. You should get, that. So I feel like the people, the HOA and the people in that instance, again, I feel like there is much to blame, if not more to blame, for Antonio Brown. Like, you knew what you were getting with him. You kept trying to, poke him or arguing with him. Like, they knew what they were going to get. Like, I know what a lion does. I'm not going to jump into a lion's cage and start punching him in the face, he's going to eat me. So that's part of it. It's again, like, look at, I'm not excusing Antonio Brown, but I don't think everybody should sit there and point at the circus act and then be surprised when the circus act says, I've had enough of this, like, fuck off, and gets upset. That's the part where I just think, I quite honestly, it annoys me, and I think it's stupid behavior on people's part.
Well, yeah, so it sounds like, obviously, no one's excusing what Antonio Brown did in the past. They're completely unrelated instances, but you're baiting someone in that situation is just as deplorable a behavior as reacting to the bait. Because if you're knowingly like baiting another human, like in the example you talk about with yourself and your family, like, okay, let's say you're not level-headed. Let's say you do have less of a wherewithal and a quicker temper. That couple was trying to feel that out. Like they were trying to poke around to find out if, hey, this guy's a lawyer. If we get out and start some shit, now we have this incredible story about this lawyer who freaked out on us and snapped our phone or grabbed us. And now it's like in the old days, I'm like, as a lawyer, like I'm sure there were instances in the old days of people trying to commit insurance fraud or something, where you're trying to get a lawsuit for something that you know isn't wrong, but you're trying to create the impression that it happened. That's what kind of people are trying to do with social media and cameras now, is like, well, let's just kind of create something so that we can profit off it, which I agree is fucking horrible that people, I didn't think, like, even in 2020, I knew that happened to Antonio Brown. Hearing that it's happening on the streets of Gilbert, like, in a random weekday is awful. Like, that's awful.
See, and my opinion on this, because I've had other people, video me in instances, is I think, and I know this because people leave comments, and a lot of people think I look like a criminal, or maybe I talk like a criminal because I swear. And I think it bothers a lot of people that I'm successful despite my appearance and the way that I talk. And so I think what they do, whether it's a little unconsciously or directly consciousful, is they're like, okay, look, I'm going to show everybody that he's the asshole that I know he is, right? And when they don't get the reaction, then they're upset, and then even if they get the reaction, they're upset because they're like, oh my God, look at you got exactly what you wanted. If that's what you wanted, then you don't have the right, in my opinion, to scream from the mountaintops, poor me, like someone got upset with me. Like, you can't go around doing that and then think that you're fault free. And I think that's what they think they're in the right. They're like, oh, okay, what are you going to say? Oh, what? Say that again. Say it again. What? Yeah. What are you doing? What? Say what? Oh, what? Here's your friend. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? How are you doing? That's the thing. And this person doing that, we're not critical of. But these two people that are having cameras shoved in their face and then they say fuck you or something, we have a problem with them. It's like, come on, man. Like, yeah, we all need to be grown up, and yeah, maybe they shouldn't have reacted the way, but this is stupid. Like, this is annoying. I don't care who you are. There's a lot of people who just don't want to be filmed. So you're out in public filming someone. I get it. You have the right to do it. Okay. But is it polite? No. It's not polite to shove a camera in someone's face and keep trying to say incendiary things, and then something incendiary happens and you're like, oh man, this guy's a fucking asshole. It's like, you got exactly what you wanted, Anyway, see, look at that. Yeah, I was unlevel-headed, but talk about a very level-headed person. Drew Brees, he got the shit knocked out of him. Man, I felt bad. I know he said some things in the past that maybe that stirred the pot, but he apologized. And I think for the most part, when you look back at his career, I think everyone would say he's a very charitable person. He's a very nice person. He's very level-headed. He's very respectful. But man, did he take a hit. And some people are saying that the hit was clean. Some people are saying the hit was not clean. What we do know for a fact is he suffered broken ribs and a punctured lung as a result of the hit. I don't care who you are. When you look at that hit, and we are protecting quarterbacks, and I think everybody, if I said to you, would you want your quarterback hit the way Drew Brees got hit? Everybody would say no, because they want their quarterback to keep starting for him. Again, maybe unless you're on a really bad team, right? But for the most part, you want your quarterback protected. So listen, I know that there was a penalty on it, 15-yard penalty for the hit. I honestly think that there should have been another penalty. I haven't heard about it, so maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But hits like that to very vulnerable quarterbacks, I know that the argument is like, look at how do you pull up in a situation like that? How do you look at? We're talking about professional athletes getting paid multiple millions of dollars to play a game. You have the ability to pull up, and in that instance, wrap them up, put them to the ground. You can do it more gently. Wrap them up in a different way. Maybe go lower instead of as high as he did. There are things, and we are concerned about people's safety as we should. I mean, we want to see Drew Brees retire and take care of his kids and spend great time with his family. That's what this boils down to, and I don't think a lot of fans look at it that way. They just look at it like, he's getting paid. That's what it is. It's a contact game, and he gets hit. Yeah, I get that to a point, but there's also a point where we got to make sure that these guys can function. And I know they get paid a lot of money, but just because you get paid a lot of money doesn't mean that you should get injured and be thrown into the fire at any moment. And any risk to your human health is less significant than anyone else's human health because you're making millions of dollars. No, he still has the right, I feel like, to walk off into retirement, so to speak, healthy. And this could have been, it might be, they're talking about it, a career-ending hit, a career-ending injury.
So I have a little different perspective. Like, I agree with you. Like, I don't disagree with a lot of what you say, but I didn't think the hit was egregious. If that was a late hit or it was leading with the helmet, like everyone is sensitive to helmet hits. If this was a concussion, if this was well after the play was over, I think what a lot of people are reacting to is that Drew Brees, like you said, is a likable dude and he's 41 years old, and we're kind of like, leave poor Drew Brees alone. Like, that was a hard hit. It was a clean football hit. Now, they do protect quarterbacks, so I don't have a problem with the 15-yard penalty. He hasn't been fined, to my knowledge, so it's not like the NFL reviewed it and said, that was late. I mean, the NFL is on top of that. I think it's just it's easier to put ourselves into Drew Brees' shoes than it is to put ourselves into Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson or, Aaron Rodgers' shoes. Like, Drew Brees, he's 6 feet tall. He's 41 years old. He got hit hard, but I thought it was a clean play, and I thought the penalty was even a little questionable. But I understand why people are upset because, like, who wants to see Drew Brees' career potentially end that way? And it could.
Well,
I mean, it could be over. You want to see him go out on his own accord, on his own 2 feet, win or lose. And if that's the last time we see Drew Brees, that really sucks. But, you kind of mentioned it. I'm sort of the part like, well, that's football, man. And he's 41. He knows that, right? I think. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? It's not that I totally disagree with you either. My point only is, and I've seen players do it on the field where, listen, who is the guy who tackled Brees? Sorry, what's his name?
Kentavious Street. Okay, so listen, he knew he was tackling Drew Brees. Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't like he was tackling DK Metcalf. Okay,
right.
There's a lot less force required to put Brees on the ground than Metcalf, right? And that's kind of my point. It's like these guys know who they're tackling. They know if they're tackling a punter or a kicker because they probably get super excited about it. Like, I want to destroy this kicker, right?
Yeah.
And I know those linemen, when they get their eyes on the quarterback, it's, like Thanksgiving turkey and gravy. Like, they want some of that. But that's kind of my point is it's like they could have put him down softer. Now, Is that a popular opinion? No. I mean, is the Byron of past probably would have said that's a bunch of horse shit. But as I get older, I'm more sympathetic for the older guys, and I want to see him around again.
You wanted to see Kentavious Street read Drew Brees a bedtime story before he thunderously broke his ribs and punctured his lung, and I mean I know what you're saying. Yeah, we do see that. Who do we see that? I think it was Ty Matthew. In the Chiefs-Ravens game, pulled up and didn't hit the quarterback because the game was already won. And basically, Matthew, after the game, was like, well, yeah, why would I hit him in that? I mean, we're all...
See, and that's a guy... And Matthew's known to play aggressively, play with heart, and play with energy. And the reason why I focus on all of those three attributes is because you could say those three things combined in a football player in the middle of a game prevents him from pulling up to do that. But he was able to do it. So if he's able to do it, other people are able to do it. Maybe it's harder for other people. Maybe it's easier for him. But they could still make an effort. That's kind of my point. But with that, we are done for today. We are taking next week off for Thanksgiving. I hope, and I speak on behalf of Jody and I'm sure we hope that you stay safe, whatever safe is in your opinion. And we hope that you enjoy whatever family you can see, however you're going to see them, whether it's Zoom or some other creative way. As always, please follow us, Sports Talk, Law Talk, on all social media platforms. If you find us on Instagram and click in the bio, you can subscribe. We also can be found on YouTube. As always, we appreciate the support, and we look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.